Welcome, everyone. We are going to start on time today. We have a lot to cover. Ashley and I are joining together to present our 6th fall webinar. This one is covering degree admissions. Specifically, we are covering the MPSA, the MIA, the MPH, the MIP degrees. So if you're looking for the online programs or looking for the DC aspects, we are not covering those necessarily through our presentation. You can look on our recruitment calendar and see some other events that they will be presenting at a later time. So today we have degree admissions. We're going to call that the golden ticket. What does it take to be admitted into a program like ours? So we do ask that as we have questions come up, you can put them in the chat box. Ashley and I will take turns in trying to answer those, or maybe even doing them verbally. But presenters today, Catherine Meyer, that's me, for Director of Admissions and Recruitment. And joining us is Ashley Treadway, the Assistant Director of Admissions. Ashley will be your one-on-one contact when you are ready to apply. So you'll receive lots of emails from her. We work in tandem as best we can in answering a lot of questions. So the agenda that we have planned is talking about the admissions process and timeline. But because we have a number of different degrees, it's going to be a little longer, so bear with us as we cover programs that you may not be interested in as much. But I'm going to start with a little bit about background research that you should be doing as you consider grad programs, what to look in for programs, what do our schools look for in our applicants, the application requirements for each of the degrees, the timeline that is involved within that. I'll offer some advice in writing the statement, finding letters of rec. We'll also present specifically for the Bush School, the average statistics for last year's classes, a little bit on financing, but we have another webinar coming up for that. And then ultimately, when you're comparing your options, some key points to think about. So again, what's on your mind? Be sure to ask us and put those in the chat questions. So we're going to start with just the generic. Is now the time for grad school? We do have a lot of questions from students regarding their youth. They're just getting out from undergrad. Is it okay? Can they be competitive? And yes, they can. And we'll talk a bit more about this. But life is all about these experiences that you are bringing to the table. So you need to also consider where you are in your life and making sure that you're ready for the sprint that becomes grad school. You don't have time to figure it out. So when you're taking classes, so you've got to think about that undergrad experience in particular and what was exciting for you. Was it your major? Do you want to continue in political science related fields? The activities that you were involved in, maybe some of the clubs and organizations. Was there an internship that you were able to complete that you really felt like maybe this was a calling for you? Sometimes it's the study abroad and the involvement of just interacting with other cultures and people from other countries and deciding that maybe an international affairs career is what I want. Or are you more research oriented and maybe doing some policy and continuing on for a PhD, which I will say we're not the best fit for, but we do have a number of students who may decide that as they're in for the studies here that they do want to continue on. And then you need to think about that intended career path that you think you're settling on. Is there additional knowledge that's needed, skills and abilities? Do they want you to have professional training, expanded networks? Can someone who knows someone within that field help get you a job that you would not have had if you hadn't gone to grad school? So you need to think about all those aspects and know that this is an investment of your time and money. And taking those steps is necessary to get you to where you want to be. So the best time to attend grad school is when you know your focus. And again, you don't have to have it all figured out, but you do need to know a little bit about the pathway you're taking. And can you contribute to the classroom dynamic? If you're just getting straight out from undergrad, weren't really actively involved on your campus, just kind of sit back. Grad school is going to demand a lot of you. You will have to participate in classroom discussions, in internships, connecting with others, going out and just exploring who you are. So be sure you are ready for that. If you're interested in these careers that are listed here, then you found the right place. The Bush School of Government and Public Service does have these interdisciplinary fields that can prepare you for any number of career paths. So I've listed some of those, but it can be communications and public relations, development and conflict resolution. We have education policy here, same with energy environment. A lot of our students do go into government service, nonprofits, but it runs the gamut here. You got security intelligence is a really big factor within our MIA, Master of International Affairs. And then people ask, what about the kinds of jobs I can get in those sectors? And you come up with all kinds of different titles for students, but I've listed some of those in bold. So you have analysts, and what they analyze can be any number of things: budgets, programs, policy, intelligence information coming in, information technology, cyber, risk and compliance. It just depends on what kind of field you go into and the job title. Same thing with coordinators, consultants, developers, investigators, managers, researchers. So you can't pigeonhole necessarily what kind of job you're getting for a career field like this, but you should be open to a wide range of options that can be available to you. When you've decided upon a career path, make sure you're researching the professional organization and these websites that are known for these public service careers. So I've listed some that if you just jot them down here: public administration, NASPA.org, APAM.org, ASPANet.org. Those are all organizations related to public affairs, administration, policy, that often have some helpful information about the career paths, about some of the job, grad school, finding them, located by countries or states. So you can do some research on those. On the international affairs side, it's more of APSIA.org, CFR, which is your foreign relations, ISANet.org, CSIS.org. When you put those in, they'll come up with the names officially. Nonprofit resources, you can go idealist.org, independentsector.org, opportunityknox.org. State, local governments, just start searching to see what's out there. Same with federal government, that's governmentjobs.com with your state name. Same thing with usajobs.gov. National Security and Diplomacy has some sites, and International Economics and Development has some sites. So when we send these slides back out to you, you can take a look at these later if you didn't get a chance to write them down. So in the admissions process, and you're preparing for this, what do schools look for? The primary aspect is your aptitude for the field. Do you have some type of background or experience that we know you can be successful in the kinds of studies we're presenting you? So again, a lot of students do come from liberal arts backgrounds for ours. Doesn't mean all of them do. You're not required to, but you need to be able to convey that kind of fit for us. The past academic success, which leads primarily to that GPA. Doesn't mean you have to have a 4.0, but you've got to make sure that what you are presenting to the faculty, and if it's not a great GPA, maybe you took some time away from that and worked for a few years, and now you have something else to contribute. It's a clear sense of direction. No one needs to come to grad school because I'm about to graduate, or I don't know what else to do. I think I want to go to grad school. You need to have thought through this and know what pathway you want to take. Ability to work with others is crucial in grad programs like ours, because a lot of this is group project work. So you're not a lone wolf here. You will be asked to work in groups, to find reading groups, share information. We're not talking the cheating aspects here, but in supporting each other and networking and figuring out ways to get through the many readings that you'll be assigned. And faculty will encourage these group readings and going through and sharing and talking them out before class. It's also finding recommender support. That's why we do ask for at least 3 recommenders for most of our programs too, for some of the others. And then the leadership involvement. What have you been able to already accomplish in your undergrad aspects? And that can include those organizations, that can include maybe a job roles that you've had. So all these become part of that look that the faculty want to see. So what makes you competitive? Well, we're looking for those relevant experiences and your contributions and the ability to succeed. So you need to highlight in your statement of purpose and in your resume, your interest. Is it research or professional programs that you want? If it's the latter, did you go take the time to look up those professors in those programs that are of interest and see what they've accomplished so far, whether that's as a practitioner. And so they've been working in a nonprofit for many years and leading those organizations, and they have that practical experience to contribute. Or maybe they're leading researchers and working with an organization or an institute or a center where others come to them for their expertise. What about your experiences, relevant work, volunteerism, your organization involvement, where maybe you were secretary, president of that organization, study abroad, internships, we talked about those earlier. And then your abilities and your skills. Can you convey? Communication is key in a grad program. It's collaboration, it's leadership, initiative, time management. It's huge. Accountability. Can others count on you and get that work done? So the list goes on. I don't need to read them all out, but just know that programs are looking for these key kind of characteristics of our students. And so it's great the more you can sit, yep, I got it. Yes, I got it. Specifically, I know for our IA, that foreign language ability, we ask for that. We want to hear that from you. So when you've kind of narrowed down your grad programs and you've searched online and done some of that legwork, the curriculum, take a look at the courses and specialization, the practitioner and research abilities. What do they want from you in required elements? Professional development. One key thing is this, that we do capstone projects. So it's a real world client you're working for. That's in place of what some programs do, a thesis, a long paper that's of interest to you. So just know which programs speak to you a little more that have that capstone or thesis. Is there a required internship? Will I be able to interact with speakers and conferences, networking, my fellow classmates or alumni, or just speakers who come in? Can I network with all of those? Look at the faculty backgrounds. What's the class ratio to faculty? Do they advise? Can I go to someone who's not my advisor? How does all that dynamic work within that faculty-student relationship? And then remember, sometimes having that institutional reputation or that program reputation is important to open some doors too. So is it accredited? Is it ranked? Are the alumni involved and want to help make those connections for you and with you? Career services, are they there for the assistance? Do they help with the networking? What are their rates 6 months out after graduation? Many of the organizations that we belong to ask for those kinds of numbers. And so we can compare ourselves to other schools. And the top schools are going to see somewhere in that 85 to 90% employment each and every year. And then who are those employers? Do I see the employers that I want to be employed within? The campus culture. This is why sometimes getting a campus visit is important if you can. Find out what their support system is there. What is it like to interact with those staff members? Is it the same for the faculty? What's my class makeup? How many? Is it a small class, large? Am I comfortable with 90 students? Do I want more like a class of 30 within my cohort? The social political climate. So keep in mind, you may make some assumptions based on schools, based on where they are, what the makeup, but you always have to remember, a lot of us are liberal arts programs, so they may skew a little more on the liberal side. Here, because in Texas, sometimes you'll get that conservative mix within it as well. So you need to go see where your comfort is, or are you going to be challenged for that? And that's also a plus. See the other side and where they're coming from. Location sounds silly, but some don't necessarily want to go where it's cold or where they think it's blazing hot. You're inside. It's not going to really be a big deal for anyone. But cost of living can be a big deal. Metropolitan area, urban. Do they have transportation with buses? Do I need a car there? Is the housing affordable? And are there enough options for housing? And then ultimately that cost factor of tuition fees. How much is it going to cost me each year? Can I receive some level of aid, grants, scholarships, GA positions? And then where am I in that position of incurring debt? If I already have a lot of undergrad debt, do I want to double that by going into a program that's a lot more expensive? Or I didn't do much for undergrad with the debt, so now I'm okay with it. And then living costs. So take into consideration all these factors when comparing schools. And that may mean setting up an Excel spreadsheet. But ultimately, what's going to matter is the access to the activities and programming you're interested in, So if you want to be a nonprofit person, then you are being prepared to that field, which is going to be different than a classmate who may be doing national security and intelligence. Is there student and professor passion about what they do? That's infectious. And you want to go to classes where people are empowered with the kind of learning that they are getting and knowing they can make a difference. And then is the cost in the school program, does it work for you and your goals? And that's what you need to think about when getting ready for the application process. So I'm going to pass it to Ashley and let her talk about the different degrees we have and the app process in each of those.
Okay, thank you, Catherine. So we have majority of people seem to be interested in our two flagship programs, the Masters of Public Service Administration and the International Affairs Masters program, which the application is different for these two programs than it is for our combined International Affairs and Public Health Masters and our international policy. So if you're interested in those as well, I'll get to those here in just a second. But first, to start with the MIA and MPSA. So our priority funding deadline is coming up on December 15th. So you have a little over 2 months to get your application in. We recommend you get all of your application materials submitted, including recommendations by this deadline. There are just a few scholarships that have earlier deadlines than later. So this just guarantees you're considered for all of our funding. Regardless, if you can't make the December 15th deadline, you have until January 12th to submit your application. That's our hard deadline and the cutoff deadline. So all materials have to be in by January 12th. You'll still receive some level of funding. So don't worry about that part. Sometimes in years where it just depends on if we're filling our class or if we're going to keep our applications open just a little bit longer because we have a few more seats left. It just depends. So check back either in January, sometime early or late January, trying to see if we will accept late applications. Both of these programs are 2-year degrees that we admit once per year for fall entry only. So no spring, no summer entry. So the required materials are, of course, submitting the application and paying for the application fee. Resume, personal statement, international experience essay is for the International Affairs Masters only. So a lot of people ask what's the difference between the personal statement and the international experience essay. There's going to be some overlap, obviously, but international experience essay is really geared towards what sparked your interest in international affairs and what is your experience. Have you traveled abroad? Have you lived abroad? Maybe worked abroad? If there's specific courses you've taken or instructors you've learned from about the international affairs area, that's what we want to know. Transcripts, we do require transcripts from all 4-year colleges. So 2-year colleges or community colleges are not needed. Recommendations, we need a total of 3. If you're in undergrad or recently graduated, we do recommend at least 2 recommenders be from a professor or an advisor, someone who can speak to your academic ability. And then a 3rd recommendation can be from a supervisor or someone who can speak to your leadership. If you're further out from your undergrad degree, we understand you lose contact with some of those academic professionals. So we will accept, 2 from a boss or someone that can speak to your leadership, and then 1 from maybe an advisor you're still in contact with or a faculty member. We do ask for English proficiency, proof of English proficiency for international applicants, and that can be satisfied in a variety of ways, from submitting a GRE score at a certain level or TOEFL scores. It depends on your background, so check out our website. We have a list of options. And then GRE scores are completely optional for the Public Service and Administration Masters. For the International Affairs, if your cumulative undergrad GPA is below a 3.2, we do require scores. If it's above a 3.2 or above, it's completely optional and it's up to you if you want to submit. We typically state if you do have less than a 3.2, try to get somewhere around our average GRE score of a 308 just to offset that lower GPA. Or if you took the GRE for fun and you did really well and you want to go ahead and have those scores submitted, that's up to you. We'll accept it. Our next slide is for the admissions timeline. So for these 2 programs, I just want you to know that once you submit your application, you're not going to get a decision right away. Instead, we wait, we collect all of the applications, and the admissions committee reviews them in late January to decide who we're moving forward to interview. We have interview conference weekends scheduled for both programs. Those are going to be held for the Public Service and Administration. It's going to be February 11th through 12th. International Affairs is going to be that next weekend, February 18th through the 19th. We encourage you to attend interview conference weekend. This is an amazing event that year after year applicants say that this was the selling point. This was the turning point as to where they decided to go to college. Just because you get to have round robin events for half of the day Friday and then all day Saturday, you get to interact with alumni, current students, faculty, and then we do 2 interviews. So you have an interview with a faculty or a staff member. Then in early March, we come back as an admissions committee and make those final decisions after we've collected all the interviews. And our goal is to have decisions and funding or scholarship amounts sent out by mid-March. That of course means you have until April 15th to either accept, decline, or request permission to defer your admission in extenuating circumstances. So those are our 2 MIA and MPSA programs. I'm going to switch gears and jump into the International Affairs and Public Health combined degree. This is a little bit different. Some of it is overlaps with the MIA, but the priority funding deadline for the MIA portion of this degree is going to be December 15th. But the final deadline is not going to be until February 1st. Keep in mind that the MPH funding is awarded completely separately and at a different time. So you have to apply separately for their funding. This is a 3-year degree, begins with fall entry into the Masters of Public Health. You're there for a year and a half, and then you come over to the Bush School for the last year and a half for the MIA program. We do admit for fall entry only, so you can submit your application, but that means you don't start into the Bush School until a year and a half later in the spring. Required materials for this. First, you're going to submit your application in the SOFAS portal, and that's the School of Public Health's application system. Right after you submit your application, you're going to turn around and submit an internal application for the MIA portion. Since they're 2 different programs, we need different information. Your recommendations are going to be uploaded to your SOFAS application, and we'll pull your recommendations from the SOFAS application for MPH. Same with your transcripts, proof of English proficiency, and then your resume. The statement of purpose or the personal statement is different for MPH than it is for the International Affairs program. If you write one personal statement that covers both of the prompts, great. We'll take whatever's on your SOFAS application. If not, you have the opportunity to upload an updated or different personal statement for the MIA portion through the internal application. Same with your resume. Some people, edit their resumes to really gear it towards one program over the other. If you have a specific one you want us to consider for the MIA portion, then you can upload it to the internal. And then the international experience essay is not asked of on the SOFAS application, but it is a requirement in the internal application. Same with your GRE scores. MPH does not require them. We do if your GPA is below a 3.2. So once you submit both your SOFAS application and your internal MIA application, the admissions process and timeline is very similar to the MIA. So we're going to review applications, except for the final deadline. I'm so sorry. Final application deadline for this program is February 1st, not January 15th, but February 1st, which means we quickly turn around and review these applications the early part of February so we can get interview invitations sent out. And then you are invited to the MIA interview conference weekend on that February 18th through the 19th. We'll come back with the MIA admissions committee in early March, make our decisions, and then I work with the MPH admissions committee to coordinate their decision on your application. So there is a possibility you're admitted to one and not the other, or you can be admitted to both or not be admitted to both. So it just depends, but I coordinate that and hope to have your decision to you by mid-March. And then you have until April 15th to accept, decline, or request a deferral. And just know that in your admission offer letter, you will receive the amount of the MIA scholarship that we're willing to award you for the last year and a half. But the funding for the MPH portion is totally separate, and you have to apply for it after you're admitted through the School of Public Health. Master of International Policy. So woohoo, we admit every single semester for this program, spring, summer, fall, you name it, you pick it and apply. It's a one-year program designed for those with at least 4 years of professional experience in international affairs, and that is a hard requirement. Bush School scholarships or funding is not awarded for this program, so just know that coming into it, the cost is on you. We do accept military benefits and it is federal financial aid eligible. We just do not have any scholarships. Required materials, application and application fee, of course, resume, personal statement, transcripts from all four-year colleges. And then we only need 2 recommendations. And this can be from, doesn't necessarily need to be professors because we know that you've been in the working field. So from a previous employer or a current supervisor, those are what we're looking for this program. GRE is completely optional. If you have a cumulative GPA below 3.2, we do encourage scores just to offset that lower GPA. We don't want to set anyone up for failure. So a higher GRE can offset that concern. And then proof of English proficiency for international applicants only. Timeline for international policy is very different. There's no interviews required for this program. And once I have all of your materials, it's considered complete, and I will have that reviewed by the admissions committee within 7 to 10 business days. And then I will send you an email within 2 to 3 days of receiving a decision. So then no matter when I send it to you, you have 30 days to accept, decline, or request a deferral. So the steps for applying. So I'll try to make this as easy as possible to understand, but one is to start your application. I recommend you start that early. So if you're thinking about starting or applying to one of the Bush School programs or the MIA, MPH, start your application early, start filling it out so you're familiar with it, can get it in by the deadline. You don't have to submit it just yet, just start it. In SOFAs and in the GradCast application, you're going to create an account. Once you log in, there's going to be 4 total quadrants. The first 3 you're going to enter. That's going to be your personal info, where you enter your biographic information, your residency. Then you'll jump to your academic history section. That's where you enter the colleges that you've attended and upload your transcripts. No, the system will say that you have to upload a transcript for every college attended. That's not accurate, and we can't update that message. Just know we only need 4-year colleges attended. Then the system will shoot you over to the supporting info quadrant where you enter your achievements and experiences. I get a lot of questions about this section because a lot of what you put in here is also on your resume. I'm going to tell you whatever you want to highlight or bring attention to off of your resume as far as achievements and experiences go, put it in this section. Otherwise, we're going to be looking at your resume. Then the step 2 is, okay, you fill out the first 3 quadrants. Now, what program do I want to apply to? And this is where you'll click on add program. You'll search for the programs. Now, it's a little bit different for each program. If you're applying in GradCast for the MPSA, IA, or International Policy, you're going to look for Bush School of Government and Public Service, and you're lucky we're the first one listed. And then you'll look for the term and the application program that you're wanting to apply to. So just know MPSA and MIA are going to have fall 2022 only. MIP is going to have every term listed. Select which one you want to apply to. MIA and MPH, you're going to look for in the SOFAs application, you're going to look for Texas A&M School of Public Health, and they're listed towards the bottom. Then you'll look for the MPH, MIA programs, and then the program name for the track and the MPH that you want. And then you'll look if you're a domestic or an international and select the right program. So a little bit more difficult to find, but it's not hard. You'll add the program, which will then shoot you over to step 3, where you fill out the program specific questions. That's, what your desired track is, what are your concentrations. Concentrations you're not stuck to, but we do like to have an idea of what field you're wanting to go into, so that way we can try to match you with someone for the interview part. You'll upload your personal document or your documents for the program. That's going to be your personal statement, international experience essay, your test scores, proof of English proficiency. All of that's going to be in the program materials quadrant. So it's the very last step. You'll enter your recommenders. and the recommendations are collected through the system. Once you enter their name and email, as well as a due date, the system automatically notifies your recommenders via email and includes instructions for them to fill out a brief evaluation. I think it's 8 questions or maybe 5 questions. It's very short, and then upload their letter. Once they submit that, you can view and modify your recommenders at any point to see the status. You get to elect if you want to see the recommendation or if you are waiving your right to see the recommendation. It's all done through the system, but I recommend you submit your application even if you don't have all 3 recommendations or 2 for MIP in, and then continuously every week log into the application, go back to the recommenders tab and see what the status is. If you need to send reminders to your recommenders saying, hey, the deadline's coming up and you still haven't submitted, that's where you'll do it. It's all through the portal. And then once I receive all 3 of them, it's considered complete. Just make sure you have all 3 or 2 of those recommendations in by the final deadline. Then you'll submit your application, and this is where you'll pay the application fee, which is $89 for domestic applicants or $114 for internationals. We do offer a few application fee waivers, but that's only for McNair, not McNair scholars. It's only for the AmeriCorps, Peace Corps, PPIA, Pickering, Wrangell, or Payne Fellows. If you email me a copy of your service confirmation letter, I will reply with a coupon code because we've already paid the fee for you, and then that's how you apply and waive the application fee. If you're interested in a need-based waiver, that's going to be through Texas A&M admissions only, and they only offer those to domestic applicants, but you have to work with them. We don't offer any need-based waivers in our office. Same with McNair scholars. McNair scholars, their fee is paid for by Texas A&M admissions, not the Bush School. Now for MIA, MPH, you have one more step. For everyone else, you're done. Your application has been submitted. You just need to monitor your recommendations to make sure they're in. MIA, MPH, you will receive an email from the School of Public Health saying we've received your SOFAS application, but go ahead and fill out the MIA supplemental application. And like I said earlier, this is where you'll upload your GRE scores if you are required to, your international experience essay, and then optional to upload your statement of purpose or your resume. And once you submit that, you're good to go. And then we'll follow the admissions timeline on reviewing your application and communicating with you what the final decision is. But let's say come mid-March or earlier if you're MIP, what happens after you're admitted? And that is when, if you're offered admission and you accept, you need to request your official transcripts from all 4-year colleges be sent to Texas A&M admissions, not me, not the Bush School, but Texas A&M admissions as soon as possible. I cannot stress this enough. We send admission letters in mid-March. Registration opens between early to mid-April, which means you only have a short period of time to get your official transcripts here, or you will not be able to register. So keep that in mind. If you're admitted, request your officials immediately. Then you'll also, if you're an international applicant, we need official proof of English proficiency test scores. So in the application, we just need a copy of your transcript. We don't need the official, but same with the test scores. We need your officials as soon as you're admitted. Otherwise, you will have a hold on your account and will not be able to register. And that is all for the admissions part of it. I'm going to hand it back over to Catherine to kind of finish out the rest of this session.
All right, thanks, Ashley. So we're going to talk about some of the content familiarity. None of our degrees require prerequisites, but many times students will ask us as they're prepping, what do I really need to know coming in? Because I may not have had some type of economics, and I know I've got economic analysis in the MPSA in my first year. So what's helpful? So there are a few suggested courses that if you can work these in, or if you've already taken them in your undergraduate experience, or even in a previous grad school experience, then you're going to be set up for success a little more. So MPSA has a few listed there, MIA, including the MIP section, international relations, diplomatic history. It's the IDEP side on the MIA that really wants you to have some economics, micro or macro or statistics. But even then, not all of them do. And so they are all programs are set up for helping you get some skills needed in quantitative analysis through either a little workshop we do during orientation or in setting up ability to go in and meet with TAs. I don't know that TAs is the right word, teaching assistants. They're probably more of student worker help that are coming in, that they are identifying students that need a little more support. Or even your colleagues many times are getting together going, I've got this, I can handle this. Anybody that's struggling right now, let's have a group meeting and let's meet on Monday morning before class and let's work through some of the problems that you're having. So this is a very collaborative environment. Don't feel like you have to have every class that's listed there. There's just a few that are suggested. There's also some free resources that we'll send out to our students over the summer and just say, look, if you feel like you haven't touched math in a while, you may want to go to Khan Academy, which are free courses, and look up some of the pre-algebra and probability and statistics just to get your brain reworking into that mentality and get ready for those first year classes. Also the spreadsheets, looking at Microsoft and creating your first Excel workbook. And because there's a lot of that Excel, we use it for the same type of parameters. When you get into grad school, you're going to become a lot more proficient in what you can do. So going through and doing some of this background work might be helpful. Let's take a look next at statement advice. So when you're writing your personal statement, know that this is the one place that you're describing who you are and expressing that fit for the program in your words. So take your time on it. Make sure it's also conveying all the things you want and answers the question. If you need to separate out the prompt and make sure you're answering maybe a couple of different aspects they have laid out there, then do that so that when it's submitted, it's very clear as to who you are, what your goals are. So take your time, outline your qualifications, your work, your volunteer, travel, the kinds of courses you've taken, convey your passion. Faculty want to know that you're excited about this field. Why this field? Why now? Is it somebody in your background, a grandfather, parent, somebody who excited you about it, a professor you took, an internship that was a random thing that ended up changing your course? And then explain your goals. Why the Bush School? Why this program? What are your career goals? So that we can see that we are a pathway to help you attain those goals. When it comes to letters of rec, Ashley hit on this a little bit earlier. 3 letters are typical in most of our programs. Faculty typically want to read letters from other faculty, especially if you are just coming out from undergrad. So many times we do encourage at least 2 to be academic. Doesn't necessarily have to be in your major. Sometimes that's helpful, but you can pick that 3rd one to either be another academic, or it can be a former employer, community mentor, student org advisor. Those are okay. But normally faculty gravitate towards, okay, that's great, but I want to know how they did in someone's class. And so sometimes that's critical to being noticed. If we're hammering out the last position we can give out and there's 15 people listed and we've got 2 slots, who has the stronger letters of rec can sometimes help. The longer you've been out, the fewer academic recs are emphasized. So now you can go to those employers and military personnel. Choose someone who's familiar with you on multiple levels if you can. Maybe you've taken their classes multiple times. Maybe they're your organizational advisor. And then if you can, supply those recommenders a couple of pieces so that if they are writing other letters of rec, they clearly remember who you are and what you contribute. So if you can give them an updated resume with some highlights that they can reference, great. Talk about your career and graduate goals with them. List of the programs you applied to and make sure they're clear on what deadlines, because many times those recommenders are doing it for more than just one program. Most people don't put all their eggs in one basket. They are actually usually applying to 3 to 7 other schools in trying to make sure that somebody's going to take them and they can excel there. And then the correct recommendation links, make sure that you're giving those deadlines and the links in the cover forms to submit with those. If you are going to prepare for the GRE test, just know that you have some resources, but these are optional now for many programs. Some still have some requirements, so just be sure you've read over those. And sometimes we'll encourage students, if you think you're a good test taker because you've done well in the past on ACT or SAT, then it's actually in your favor to submit a test score. It may not be an admissions decision differential, but it could be some on scholarship. Because when faculty are looking at those high-end scholarships, they certainly do feel better many times when there's additional credentials that say not only do they have a good GPA at this good university, but they're also scoring above our averages and doing well on these GRE tests. That is not to say that everyone's going to have them, but those that do, if you feel like $200 in taking this test can speak well for your ability, then I would do it. If you then take that test and don't like your scores, you can contact Ashley and have them withdrawn. Unless you're in the MIA 3.2 or below, you have to have the scores no matter what they are, because that is a requirement for us in that MIA program. So each test vendor has some free practice tests on their websites. That can be Princeton Review, it can be Kaplan, there's all kinds. There's books and software that are available out there. If you have the funds, sometimes people would do a test review course. They're just expensive, like $1,000 or more expensive. So not many go that route. But that is just something to think about. If potentially you're trying to overcome some lacking GPA or other lack of qualified experiences to bring to the table. So admissions criteria and decisions, just know that when we're meeting in that January timeframe, when we first get all those applications and we're trying to decide who to invite, that first meeting is more about who not to invite. So if you're within the scope of most applicants, you're going to receive an invitation. The ones that do not are the ones that they may have a little more concern about a shaky GPA, talk about in their statement about going on for PhD, and maybe we're not the strongest fit for that field that you're talking about. Those are sometimes the ones that get weeded out. But our successful applicants are showing those academic potential and leadership, propensity for serving in the public, nonprofit, and private sectors that resonates with faculty as they're looking at their pieces. But it's after the interview, or for your case, during that interview, when you're conveying that passion and fit. And then we use those comments from faculty and staff, if you have that, in putting that with your file. So not only do we have a file evaluation, we also have an interview evaluation. And those are all contributing in a sense of points towards your file. And then we are trying to interview double that intended class size and then whittle it down to something manageable. So just to say, in a typical year, if we're looking for a class of 90 people in the MPSA and MIA, which is about right, then we want to interview double that. So that's 180 people we're interviewing, and we're probably going to admit about 120 of those, somewhere around that number. And we'll play with that. Every one of those students will receive some level of funding. And then when we start to get below that mark of that 120, we go, oh gosh, okay, well, we've got a few slots. Maybe we want to over offer this year. Then we sometimes will do that, or we'll just start creating a wait list. Going, we're not comfortable to put more money offers out there. Let's see how things go. And if some things get turned down from us, then we'll go to a wait list and supply those. So the MIA typically does a wait list every single year. MPSA is a little more sparingly in it. They have done it for the last 2 years. And then if students are then contacting us asking about ranking, they're not ranked. Those wait lists, it's just the names put on there. We'll later figure out who we want to bring in after further conversations about our needs for that class. And we'll notify the students if places become available later. So if you are curious, if you attended some of the earlier sessions on the degrees, we went through this. So I'm going to kind of go over it pretty quickly. But the MPSA and MIA stats, our average GPA for this year's incoming class was a 3.56 for both. GRE is a 306 for the MPSA. It was a 308 for the IA. Merit with that experience and fit does affect the scholarship level. We enrolled 80 to 90 students per department. That fluctuates a little bit from year to year. You're sitting in classes that usually average about 16 students. Most of our classrooms are smaller boardroom style, so it's a big table with chairs around it. It's not lecture. So you're going to be in a very intimate kind of classroom environment where you're going to be called on and asked to contribute. So just be ready for that type of environment. Most max out at around 20 to 25 students. Very few are bigger than that, if any. And then you're learning from seasoned practitioners and research professors in our classrooms. This is also now on the website, but by the numbers, you can see the enrollment. Yes, we had closer to 90 for both programs, but by the end of the summer, there were still some COVID concerns from a few students, as well as some financial hits from a few students who couldn't quite get their jobs lined up, whatever the case. And so the enrollment had dropped just a little bit under where we wanted it to be. But you can see average age, women percentage, underrepresented minority percentages. Typically, those numbers are somewhere around that 30%. This year, the MIA was a little bit lower with 20. International numbers, 10 to 11%. It's not too far off. Master Public Service usually is closer to 18 to 20%. But again, we did lose a handful of those students coming in over the summer. They decided they weren't sure what COVID regulations were renewed for them to be able to get their visas. So some of that changed. And then when you're looking at the average work experience in years, you can see that 0 to 2 years is a pretty big number here. We love for students to go work for a couple of years, but not all of them can, nor do some of them want to. They already know and are passionate about what they want to study, and they are ready to just hit the ground running and want to apply right now. And they're going to play their cards and see if they can go ahead and get in without some work experience first. If they are declined, we obviously encourage them, go work for a few years, maybe do a graduate certificate, come back to us with something, I guess, for a little more credential that maybe helps you stand out the next year. So these numbers will just show you. And of course, the MIP, they have to have 4 years of experience or more. So in this case, all of them did, all 5 of them at this point. That's something we had for the fall. We're looking for a handful more for the spring. So I'm not going to cover a lot about financing your studies, but I just want to mention we do provide scholarships. There are fellowships available out for some students too. Most of these kinds of consideration at the grad level are merit-based. They don't have to be paid back. Typically, you're using them for tuition. And if you have some left over, you can use it for living costs. Generally, these kinds of scholarships go to the students that departments most desire. Some schools only fund their top 15%, 50%. We fund 100% of our students in the MPSA and MIA in terms of every student gets something. Not that every student gets a full ride. That's not what we're saying. Our average scholarships is on another slide, which will be next. But there's assistantships that also some schools can provide. And in our case, we only give out those graduate assistantships in year 2. And so you need to do well in year 1, and then you can request to be considered for those assistantships. And if you're matched with a staff or faculty or chosen through an application, then you will then lose that Bush School scholarship, but instead you're now getting the assistantship money. And you're required to work 10 to 20 hours per week, depending on the sessions. Most of them are 20 hours per week. And then you're checking with your department directly to see who's available, what kind of requirements they want from you. Most students, and I'm not sure how accurate that 75% is for sure, but a lot of students are taking out graduate aid in the form of loans. That's just the reality. Most students don't have enough savings to then come back and say, all right, I saved for it, I'm just gonna spend all that. And most are not gonna be able to get a graduate assistantship. So the reality is it's a mix of working part-time. It's a mixture of some of the savings, some of the scholarship money that you've been given, and putting all that together with loans to pay your bills. There are some part-time work opportunities. We're very fortunate. A&M has jobs for Aggies. So every position on campus, from GAs and TAs and RAs and whatever else for assistantships, along with student worker positions, are advertised in Jobs for Aggies. So you can look on the university job site for potential on-campus jobs. You can also reach into the community for others, and some are actually advertised from the community on Jobs for Aggies. So those MPSA and MIA costs, just remember 100%, we're covering every student of something. The scholarships range from $1,000 to $29,000. But the two most prevalent levels are 3,000 and 5,000. Probably 2/3 of our students are receiving either a 3,000 per year or a 5,000 per year. Some are fortunate that they're getting 10,000, 15,000. There's a couple that are full rides. They're just hard to get. And those are only for domestic students. But even international students are considered for these Bush School scholarships. So you can receive something. And we also still have those waivers. So graduate assistantships, I mentioned, are an option in year 2. Internships and scholarships are also available. So our cost per year for the MPSA and MIA is about $13,400 in tuition and fees at the in-state level, and that's before your scholarship is applied. So if you get a $10,000 scholarship, you're paying $3,400 in your tuition and fees. Living cost is another $21,000. You're pretty much on your own for that. I'm trying to find some loans again. And then for MIP students, those costs are about $16,900 for Texas residents, and it's about $32,000 for non-residents. So all when this comes together, last slide to talk about, is the program or the school reputable and willing to work with you? Did you review the campus location and facilities? Are they inclusive? Do they allow for debate and discussion? Are you comfortable there? Are you able to develop faculty professional relationships? Do you have professional development opportunities like internships, study abroad, speakers coming in, capstone projects? Every grad school of reputation is going to have those. How is the employment assistance and alumni networking? Definitely compare the tuition and fees and the living costs over the length of the program, so you don't get started and then go, oh my gosh, I can't afford this. If you're getting no aid, are you willing to incur debt for that program? In one consideration I always think about is nonprofits. Not always the biggest high paying field. So you may not want to go to a school where you're paying $40,000 in debt each of the 2 years and then coming back out having to pay that on a nonprofit or assistantship kind of position. And can you see yourself growing in your 2 years and improving your current self? And what other factors are a matter to you? Those are things that you need to consider ultimately after the offers are made and you're now comparing. So just remember, these are the follow-up questions availability. I'm found at the Bush School admissions at tamu.edu. So I handle a lot of the inquiries, but if you're applying and you've got an application question, those questions go to Ashley at Bush School Applications, and then the phone number comes to both of us. So just usually it's Ashley who picks it up. I'm not real quick on that, but we are there to help. No stupid question exists. We will help you, but do try to look at the information that's on the website. We laid it all out for you. And then the last thing is just to remind you that there are some more upcoming events. Some of you may have signed up for these. There's career development, co-curricular, and financial aid. We have Zoom Q&A hours every 1 to 2 weeks. I put next is Friday, September 17th, so that's old, but we do have another one coming up on October the 27th, so I'll update that in a second. And then you can catch us on a number of different online events. So we actually have a couple of them for AFCEA and Foreign Affairs next week. So if you look at our calendar on our website, you can see those and you can catch us again if you want to ask questions. And if anyone does want to come to campus, we are holding open houses. They're usually on Fridays from 1 to 3. And I've got one next week that's about filled, but I've got plenty of room so far on the November 5th, 19th, December 3rd, and January 7th. So now I am going to be quiet and see if anyone has any questions. Ashley, I don't know if you were able to monitor to see if there's any messages so far, but if someone does want to unmute and ask, we have about 2 or 3 minutes to do that.
There weren't any chat. Well, there's one now.
So it looks like it says, I know you said there's a committee of faculty and staff who review the applications, but I was wondering how many people will be reviewing and interviewing, and if y'all are part of that committee. So Ashley and I are part of that committee and a part of the interviews as needed. It depends on the program. Both programs, the MPSA and MIA, those departments, they include every faculty member for interviews. We couldn't get through 360 interviews for each program because there's 2 per person for 180 if we didn't include everyone. What I'm trying to do is match you to one of your top 3 to 4 interests so that you have value added to your file based on you interacting with a faculty member that you would have in class, right? So if you are an intelligence person looking to study that, then you're going to get one of 3 or 4 faculty who teach in that field, which would be different than someone who's studying for the Middle East, which is different than someone doing education policy. So we do have a little bit of contribution to that, but occasionally Ashley and I will interview, but there are other staff and career services in our leadership program who also interview as needed. Again, it's a full-fledged effort. Those interview conference weekends and interview process, we're trying to give that hard press to show you how supportive we are here and interacting. Okay, so any other questions? Ashley, do you have one that you wanted to do verbally?
No, Lewis, I don't know how to say the last name, but Lewis has a question. He has his hand raised. Okay, yeah.
Hi, how are you guys doing today?
Good, how are you?
Good, doing well. Thank you for the presentation. Just really quick question. So I was actually wondering about the GRE. I'm planning on taking it sometime around next month. So do official scores have to be received by the December deadline, or do we just upload unofficial, or?
Just upload your GRE score report. So you usually get that within at least within 2 weeks of taking the test. In your testing portal, you can download that unofficial score report and upload that to your application. We don't need official scores. Unless you're an international applicant and you're admitted, you'll need to submit officials. But other than that, we don't need official scores.
Okay, thank you so much.
Uh-huh. Anyone else?
Yep, anybody else? I will say that as you guys are generating a question, Ashley and I are here to help. And if you start on that application and get hung up on something because you're just not sure about how ours does something compared to someone else, just pick up the phone and ask us or drop in one of those Zoom Q&As. Okay, I do see a question. Maya, you're asking, are there a certain number of spots set aside for 3+2 students? Sort of, yes. Both programs want to admit a few 3+2 students. The IA probably wants to do fewer of them, just because of the makeup of the faculty and how they really want to see more experience brought in. If they can be more selective, they are. But last year's class that was brought in last fall, not 21, 20, we brought in 9 5-year students. This year we brought in 2 on that one. On the Master Public Service side, they're typically more around the 8 to 12 mark. So usually the MPSA will bring in a few more of those students than the IA. But that's not to say that, you know, every class is different. It depends on how that engagement goes and how you stack up to the rest of the applicant pool for that year. So if they can be more selective because they had their banner year of the most applications ever, then that's what affected us only taking in 2 students this year. But last year got hit by COVID. And so some of those students didn't come. We pulled people off the wait list. So they had a little more. All right.
Maya, I also wanted to add, since you mentioned 3+2 students, the application process that I went over in this presentation, don't follow that. Instead, you'll want to go to our website and look at the 3+2 application instructions specific to the 3+2 programs. You'll fill out an internal application rather than a GradCast application. So just FYI.
All right, last call for any questions. Anybody wants to raise their hand or just unmute? Otherwise, we're going to wrap it up. I'm going to give you about 5 seconds. Jinlo, you have a question?
Yes, sir, Jennifer. I don't know what comes up that way. I'm crazy. On the open house, do we need to register anywhere or just come to the Allen building?
There is a registration. So
Okay.
on our website, under the admissions section, there's a recruitment events and there's a calendar, and right under the calendar, there's a section for open house and it has a registration. So just sign up for that. Because I give you directions on where to park, what you need to bring, those kinds of things.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. All right, we've hit 2 o'clock, so I want to be mindful of your time. What we'll do is get these slides transcribed, and then we'll send them out in a couple of, well, it's probably at least a week or 2. And then you'll be able to see that both housed in your email as well as on the website. So if you need to reference it later, you'll have it. In the meantime, if you do have questions, just follow up with Ashley and myself. We'll be happy to answer those. So again, those email addresses are here along with the phone number. So thank you guys for joining us. We appreciate it. Ashley, anything else?
We had one more question come in.
Okay.
Naimesh said 2 interviews are required. Well, do we have to give 2 interviews, one with faculty members and another with staff members? Yes, interviews are required for the MIA and MPSA programs. The interviews, we try to match you up with 2 faculty members, but it could be a staff member in that area, in that department.
Yeah, for sure. You'll get it. You won't get 2 staff members for sure, but
No.
I'll spread that out as much as I can. All right. Well, with that being said, those are great questions. We appreciate your time. And you guys reach out to us when you need us. Good luck in the application process. Good luck in finding the perfect school for your fit. And thank you guys for joining us.